Mount up! We're coming!
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider presented by FanDuel. Matthew Coller here, and tonight we got some fun things to run through. The Vikings keep meeting with day 2 wide receivers. We're going to take a look at the ones that they have met with in some capacity, including a fairly new name that Mel Kiper mocked to the Vikings, and I mentioned that last night, and then it was reported today by Ian Rappaport that this receiver is meeting with the Vikings, so maybe some connections there. We're going to go over those wide receivers, and then I got some other things to get into, including a very interesting NFL.com 5-round mock draft. You know that we are getting closer to draft season when somebody's got a freaking 5-round mock, but I actually think it's pretty good, so we're going to go over that. And then I started digging through old Vikings drafts in search of my best and worst draft takes. And I want to throw this out there to you before we get into the receivers and the mock draft and everything else, that the FanDuel question of the day is related to that subject, which is in formulating my draft takes, we're getting closer and closer. In years past, I've been right sometimes and I've been wrong sometimes. Sometimes a really big win. Sometimes it's a really big L. I'm mostly focused for tonight on the Vikings ones, but I'm interested in any that you guys have. That's the FanDuel question of the day. Give me your best pre-draft take that ended up working out. A player you loved, somebody was going to go to some team. Throw it in the comments. I'll read a bunch of them. I want your best ever draft take before the draft. And just to throw a couple out there of mine this year that I'll be watching closely, I don't think Ty Simpson's going to be a first-round draft pick. I do think Sonny Styles is going to go higher than he is expected, and I don't think the Vikings are going to draft a safety. Those are my 3 picks so far that I'm kind of, planting the flag. And if you're curious, the Cardinals are the favorite for Ty Simpson on FanDuel at plus 130. And as far as where Sonny Styles will go, I think he's going to go high, like really high, but he is the favorite to go 5th overall at plus 230. So we will get into all of your takes that worked out for you shortly, but let's take a look at some of these wide receivers. So this list here was compiled by Will Raggets of Vikings on SI on Twitter. He threw this out there. So these are the guys that they've met with, and you'll notice a similarity between all of them, which is that they are all mocked around the 2nd or 3rd or 4th rounds. The guy whose name has just emerged in connection with the Vikings from Mel Kiper to then them meeting with him is Dazon Stribling of Ole Miss. I did mention him last night. Bigger guy, very good athlete. But I want to take a closer look at him since he is sort of the receiver of the day that they are looking at. So I've got up here the from the Beast, from the Athletic, Dane Brugler, and his draft profile of Dazon Stribling from Ole Miss, 23 years old. He is a 5th-year senior, and Dane's takeaway is that Stribling isn't the most well-rounded in terms of his route success, but he is a big-bodied athlete with strong ball skills and a pro mindset. He has the talent and competitive toughness to settle into a wide receiver 2 or 3 role in an NFL offense. And we look at his combine numbers, 6'2", 207 pounds, 10-inch hands is pretty big, and a 4.36 40. So very impressive numbers there. And in terms of his strengths, well-built frame with sculpted arms, torso, and legs, same, obviously. Let's see, quick to accelerate in a straight line, steady hands. And in terms of weaknesses, lacks ideal arm length, can do a better job boxing out corners, inconsistent sink and deception at the top of his routes. So he kind of comes across Dazon Stribling as a I mean, that actually kind of sounds a little bit Jalen Naylor like, only larger. A bigger version of Jalen Naylor, but a straight line 4-3-6 wide receiver. And if that was their 82nd or 97th pick, then count me in for Dazon Stribling, because in this type of role, in this situation, feels like he would fit in actually quite well with what the Vikings are doing. They've also met with Ted Hurst from Georgia State, Antonio Williams from Clemson, Bryce Lance from NDSU, Skylar Bell from UConn, and Chris Brazel II from Tennessee. I haven't read what Brugler has said about Ted Hurst, but he's somebody that gets talked about a lot. So I do want to look at that and go through kind of all these guys, what he has said about them. So I'm going to take a look at Ted Hurst now. Georgia State wide receiver. I saw that Steve Smith just put out a podcast talking about how good Hurst is. Let's take a look at his profile, because he's another guy that has been talked about a lot by the draft analysts as maybe a sleeper. And then when enough draft analysts call the same guy a sleeper, he becomes not a sleeper anymore. But let's take a look at some of his strengths. What Dane Brugler wrote is, Hurst faces a steep learning curve versus NFL press and coverage traffic, but his physical traits and ball tracking skills, especially as a downfield target, are exciting. He's a developmental XZ receiver with down the road starting upside. So this is somebody that may not be able to help them in the same way right away as a guy who played at Ole Miss, or at least I would assume that there would be a development curve for Ted Hurst coming from Georgia State. But out of all these guys, there's only one that really isn't a downfield type of target. And not only are we seeing that they're looking at day 2 to early day 3 wide receivers, but there's also a type in here. Antonio Williams from Clemson is more of a pure slot wide receiver. He's much more of an underneath guy, but when Clemson did use him down the field, he did have some success. They just had, in my estimation, a very bad quarterback. I didn't think that Cade Klubnik was good or even remotely good, and that might have held back Antonio Williams from going downfield, but that wasn't his skill set in college. Bryce Lance, crazy athlete. Skylar Bell, I don't know quite as much about as some of the other wide receivers, but Chris Brazel, let's see, I'm gonna pull up Skylar Bell here. But Brazel is a downfield wide receiver as well. In fact, anybody who comes out of Tennessee seems to be that. He's got big size. And so it kind of looks like what they're going for is a Jalen Naylor replacement, maybe with similar to even better size or upside than Jalen Naylor had, to go along with Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. And when you look at the routes that Naylor was being asked to run, it's a lot of clear out. It's a lot of deep shots down the field. It's every once in a while getting the ball in his hands. Bryce Lance, for example, is just a freaky, crazy type of athlete that would immediately cause some problems for defensive backs with just his size and speed. In terms of Bell, Brugler wrote, Bell doesn't stand out with his size or physicality, but his route savvy helps him slip past coverage and accelerate. Projects as a NFL slot who will fight his way onto the field. He's only 5'11", 192, but ran a 4.4 with a 41-inch vertical. So each one of these guys has something that stands out about them. Stribling is the big-time size and speed. Hurst is ball tracking, downfield ability. Antonio Williams, a smooth slot route runner. It seems like Skylar Bell is that way too, more of a pure type of slot guy. And then Brazel and Lance are the deep wide receivers. But as we attempt to kind of put together the pieces a little bit based on, well, here's the guys that they've had in for visits. And you know how I feel about that. I don't love saying, well, because they did this, it definitely means that. But when you bring in all sorts of guys or meet with them at the combine or whatever it is, all sorts of guys who fit a similar profile, and you have that as a need, it starts to paint a picture. So who is our favorite out of this list? Stribling, Hurst, Williams, Lance, Bell, and Brazel. I think actually Antonio Williams would be mine, because as much as the downfield wide receiver is great and everybody loves that guy, I can't get one particular receiver out of my head with this, and that's Jalen Hyatt. Remember Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee? He was very highly thought of coming out in the draft. This guy's a pure deep threat. And I just feel like there has not been, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, that many guys who have come out with, hey, he's going to line up at X and he's just going to run deep down the field, that have ended up really working out. Usually it's the smooth route runners. It is guys who are 5'11" or 6 foot, whose separation and hands are the things that make them different. And Antonio Williams especially played at a high level at Clemson, and he's Brugler's, I think, wide receiver 10. And Skylar Bell, UConn, maybe not as much, but Williams is the one guy who played at a bigger university, had a lot of success, and is the smooth route runner. He's going to get open. Maybe doesn't have crazy, yards after catch or something like that, but separation is often very important if you don't have crazy size or crazy speed. I do like Denzel Boston as a potential second round wide receiver, but he's 6'4" and has the strongest hands and great ball tracking. He's more of a first round type of pick. If we're looking in the third for these wide receivers, maybe the guy that creates separation is more of a pure and complete wide receiver than, hey, he just dominated with his physical size going down the field. And usually, too, there's a little bit of signal in, if you're a separator, that means that you are often being used that way in college. Like, your main skill is you can take on coverage, get open. Whereas we saw this from Laquan Treadwell, and it was a bit of a warning sign that in college, he talked about this himself. He said, we didn't really have exact route distances when I was in college, route depths. You're like, really? What do you mean? Just line up out there, kind of run a go, run a hitch wherever you feel like it. Just get open. I mean, sometimes with the people who are physically dominant, that ends up being a thing. But all of these wide receivers, for one reason or another, would have plenty of reason for the Vikings to be interested. So if there's one of those guys that stands out to you, or would you rather the Vikings take a receiver higher? Do you like the idea of them looking at day 2, probably round 3 type of wide receivers? All right, let's get to this 5-round NFL.com mock. This is Chad Reuter from NFL.com, and he's kind of known there for doing these epic, insane mock drafts, but he's done well before at times with the Minnesota Vikings, and this is his 5-round mock. At number 18 overall, he takes defensive tackle Caleb Banks out of Florida. With the 49th pick, D'Angelo Pons, the cornerback from Indiana. Genesis Smith, a safety from Arizona, is number 82. Number 97 goes to Sam Hecht, the Kansas State center. And then number 163 is Demon Claiborne, the running back with great speed. Let's go over these picks. With Caleb Banks, I think this is one where you're taking your life in your hands a little bit. It is a enormous risk for me. At the same time, I've got to think that if Caleb Banks had been able to play last year and transfer over what he had done his previous 2024 season and grown and developed a little bit, that we might be talking about someone who is a top 10 draft pick. Just in terms of size, movement skill, traits, if that's what they're going on and that's what they're evaluating on, Caleb Banks is more of a top 10 caliber pick who would be dropping to you because of a foot injury, which is very scary in my mind. Very, very scary to draft somebody who's had multiple foot issues at that size. And he is a boom or bust type of draft pick. But if you're looking for someone with the potential, and I'm not saying he will become Dexter Lawrence because Dexter Lawrence was better in college, but somebody who has the Dexter Lawrence type of build, these crazy long arms, just an enormous dude who could come in right away and handle the NFL physically. And then the hope would be over 2-3 years, he develops into a superstar. He has that potential. If they want to swing for superstar, Caleb Banks is a good move here. If they want to play it safer, I think Peter Woods would be the guy to go with. But okay, if they do it, I'm going to say on draft night, all right, that's a little scary, but man, this guy has the potential to be good. The second pick, number 49 overall, I would adore. I would love this pick. And I think all of you would too as soon as you saw D'Angelo Pons play. If you haven't, from Indiana, he is undersized and it is impossible not to make the Antoine Winfield comparison because while he is undersized, he has great length. He has unbelievable athleticism in terms of his leaping ability, in terms of his speed, his explosiveness, his production, and he has that dog in him. And if you watched any of D'Angelo Pons play at Indiana, Fernando Mendoza was great. The receivers were great. This guy had a lot to do with why that team won the national championship. And he was one of my favorite players to watch all year in college football. And I like to go back and watch old Vikings games. You guys know that. I was just watching one, I know it's going to sound weird, from 06 the other day. And it's Tavares Jackson versus washed Brett Favre at the end of the season. And it's every defensive sequence where Antoine Winfield is making a play. It is not always the size of the guy that makes the biggest difference in the NFL. If you can meet certain athletic thresholds and if you have that dog in you, which I think D'Angelo Pons does. I also think that he's not just a slot. Being a slot corner is different than just, hey, he's short. He's a slot corner. There's been plenty of outside corners who are not the tallest. And when you can jump 43 inches in the air, well, then I don't think you're going to get out-leaped all the time by taller wide receivers. So I love that pick, number 49 overall. 82, Genesis Smith is, I think, the way to go with safety, which is, okay, if you want to get it in the second round, fine. But the third round is a great spot. I was looking over the past drafts where safeties usually went. Most of the time, they went in like the early second, sometimes in the late first, but there are good NFL safeties all the time that are taken in the middle or early parts of the third round. Lots of starters that are taken in that area, and Genesis Smith might be one of those types of players. So filling the safety spot there and getting DT, which is a crazy hard position to replace, and corner, which is a difficult position to replace, would be my preference to hit safety in the third round. Sam Hecht, I know that my friend Brandon Thorne, who does trench warfare, studying offensive linemen, has Sam Hecht as his number one center. So to get the number one center, at least from him and some other people at 97, ideal. He doesn't have to start right away. Start Blake Brandel, develop Sam Hecht, and then they get a guy with some lightning in his shoes in Demon Claiborne, one of the fastest players in the draft. I think that it all hinges on Caleb Banks. Okay. It all hinges on Caleb Banks. That one is going to make you feel a little seasick if they do it, because this could go one way or the other. Sometimes you are swinging for the fences. It would be a swing for the fences, try to get one of the best players in the draft at number 18. Not that different from what they did with Christian Darrisaw. One of the reasons Darrisaw dropped was injury, and there were some questions about whether he had the motivation, the drive, the toughness, all that sort of stuff. So he ends up dropping, and the Vikings get a superstar. That might be the potential case here with Caleb Banks, but it would depend a lot on the medical situation, which the Vikings would know a lot better than us. But if the Vikings did this on draft night, I feel like I would have to give them an A. This is really good. So how would you grade this 5-round mock from Chad Reuter? I would probably go A minus, but I'm not even sure where the minus is, other than Banks scares me a little bit with his medical situation. And at least in the recent past, the Vikings have taken some risks on medicals, and it has not always necessarily worked out. So that would be something that you're going, we'll see. But the upside is extremely, extremely high. So I want to get back to, so give me your grades there. I want to get back to what I was talking about at the very beginning of the show, which is your best takes. That's the FanDuel question of the day. Give me your best draft take that you've ever had going into the draft. So I have my best ones. I also have my worst ones. And then I dug up a 2025 Vikings draft simulation that I did. It was one of the last simulations that I did before the draft last year. Cause we do them all the time, these draft sims, these mocks, and then kind of forget about them. They do the draft and we never talk about it again. So I dug one up, but here's a list of my best Purple Insider draft takes leading into the draft. At the top of the list, predicting wide receiver in 2023, there was a big debate in 2023 about, well, these receivers are all small. It was Zay Flowers. It was Jackson Smith-Njigba. It was Jordan Addison. None of these receivers are, and this is an argument for taking one very high this year, but none of these receivers are really elite. There's no real wide receiver one in this draft. That was what was said repeatedly about that draft. And clearly Jackson Smith-Njigba was a true wide receiver number one. People also thought going into the draft that Justin Jefferson wasn't a wide receiver one, and he had more yards through 5 years than anyone in history. So, hey, surprising, the draft is random. But Jordan Addison's, his weight, his size, Zay Flowers' weight and size, a lot of people thought, these receivers aren't that great. So I was banging the drum for take a wide receiver. Adam Thielen was gone. There was a lot of people who wanted corner, some other defensive positions. So I nailed that and thought that Jordan Addison was a perfect fit. Aside from his driving, he has turned out to be for the Vikings. Number two is when Kwesi Adofo-Mensah traded down. As much as I wanted to be on the side of the analytics, I couldn't make the analytics work for that move for myself. It wasn't just the trade down and how much they gave up, or left on the table potentially from history, but it was also who they picked: a safety, an injured corner, a reach versus the consensus board at guard. They felt like very spotty picks. And even with Brian Asamoah, a linebacker, it was like the non-premium positions that here we are years later banging kind of the same drum. Didn't really love the way that played out. Didn't think that Lewis Cine really had the potential to be a complete game-changing safety, and that ended up being right. Now, trust me, I'm going to get to the wrong ones in a second. So if you're thinking, this is patting himself on the back, I included the bad ones. When the Vikings drafted Justin Jefferson, I think I was on radio then and not doing this show yet. I think I probably laughed for like 30 seconds straight because of Philadelphia taking Jalen Reagor and the Vikings getting Justin Jefferson. I was in complete disbelief, thought they had no chance to get a receiver that great. I thought that he was the best receiver in the draft and he would be gone by like pick 5, 7. He was being projected super high and he ends up going to the Vikings and of course has become an unbelievable talent for them. So nailed it on Justin Jefferson. And I did not like the Vikings passing up on Antoine Winfield Jr. in the 2020 draft because, come on, it was right there. Antoine Winfield Jr. was a phenomenal playmaker. 2.5 miles down the road or whatever it is from US Bank Stadium, and the Vikings chose someone else, and it did not work out. So those are the ones that I nailed for the draft. Now, the ones that I did not nail are these. I wrote on the newsletter, purpleinsider.football. Please go check it out if you have a chance. I just wrote a Kyler Murray feature over there. I wrote that the Wyatt Davis pick was an A+. Yep. Gave it an A, not an A, an A+. Because Wyatt Davis had been projected really high in the draft, the first round potential draft pick. And he had, I think, a bad national championship game. So people were a little more down on him. He's dropping in the draft. And it was like, they got to get this guy. He was a projected top draft pick. He's going to be phenomenal. He was really good all season for Ohio State. Don't judge him on the championship game. What a draft pick. They crushed it. Home run Vikings. Yeah, I don't think he ever played a game. No, I don't believe he did. And he was so out of shape in his first training camp that Mike Zimmer had him running gassers at the end of camp, which you never see. You never see a starting player or a backup or somebody who's really going to play just trying to get in shape. That just never happens. And Wyatt seemed to me like he was a guy that just didn't really want to play football, and it worked out that way. So that was a very, very bad job of analysis by me on Wyatt Davis. 2019, absolutely loved the draft pick of Irv Smith Jr. Then I continued to be, it was a journey. It was a journey with Irv Smith Jr. because I really love that pick. 2 tight ends, use him as a kind of pseudo wide receiver 3. Gary Kubiak is going to be in the building, like his 2 tight end sets. They use them all the time. He was a little bit of a hybrid. He had lined up in the backfield. He could run routes. He could go downfield. He was yards after catch. He was a very versatile player at Alabama. But I don't know that he ever really got the offense as a complete tight end. And then that injury just seemed to end Irv Smith. I don't really understand it fully, why he didn't bounce back from that one. But I think too many times we just expect players, if they get injured, like, you'll be fine. Just, zoop, like, you'll just go back, like on Madden. As we saw from Darrisaw, it's not always the case. That injury that he got in 2021 as Mike Zimmer, for whatever freaking reason, decided to play him in the 4th preseason game, which is why I will defend mostly Kevin O'Connell for not playing starters ever in the preseason, because it stinks to lose players in games that don't matter. But I thought that was a great pick. Loved it over A.J. Brown. Didn't really like A.J. Brown as a prospect necessarily. It's like, this is the way to go. Irv Smith Jr. did not work out. It looked like it was gonna, but then it didn't. I did not like the Brian O'Neill pick. I know I've mentioned this before, but the reason I didn't was because they needed help on the offensive line right away. And I just didn't think he could get in there right away. I think, was it Rashad Hill or Mike Remmers, who was playing right tackle at the time in 2018? I feel like, gosh, I kind of don't remember. It might have been Rashad Hill started the season there, or Remmers. I actually don't even remember. Someone will have to remind me. And O'Neill came off the bench in week 2 and then never gave the job back. It just a tremendous talent, super tough, super smart, like Pro Bowl caliber player. But if you looked at the profile of O'Neill, he was so slender when he got to the NFL that I thought, this guy's going to take like 3 or 4 years before he can play. Totally wrong about O'Neill. What you don't know is how much somebody's going to put into it, how much toughness they're going to have when they actually get out there. So massive miss on that one. And then here's one that is intriguing. It's intriguing. Let me lay it out. It's interesting. I wanted the Vikings to pick Mac Jones instead of Christian Darrisaw. Now I know they traded down for Darrisaw, but I think Mac Jones was on the board for their first pick, or it was right there. I don't remember exactly how it played out, but they could have taken Mac Jones. And the take was this. Everyone was saying Mac Jones is Kirk Cousins. My thought was, well, if Kirk Cousins cost $5 million and not $35 million, that would actually be amazing. And while Mac Jones has eventually become a backup and a very, very good one who should probably be starting in the NFL right now, I do wonder, had they taken him, now you don't get Darrisaw, so then you have to solve left tackle, so I don't know what happens there. But had they taken him, would they have been able to build a better roster and a better offensive line and a better defense in those subsequent years and had basically the same production or similar? Because while Mac didn't work out with the Belichick fading Patriots and then the Jaguars, I think we saw last year how good he could be with a good team with the San Francisco 49ers. So with Justin Jefferson, however that would have played out, Thielen, etc., how good would Mac Jones have been on that rookie quarterback contract? Now, eventually, I don't know, like, who knows, right? But that one, I'll take an L on. Mac Jones has become a backup quarterback. Darrisaw is a superstar. So there are my best and worst. And I also wanted to show you guys, I dug up a 2025 draft simulation right before the draft. How did I do? Versus also, the board didn't exactly play out this way. I had Gray Zabel in the first, which I feel great about because Gray Zabel became awesome instantly, but he would not have been available. I traded down in this draft to get extra draft capital. Dorian Strong played a little for Buffalo. I'm very proud of my 5th round pick, Kyle Williams, who turned out to be a good receiver for the Patriots. I took Tonka Hemingway purely for his name. I don't think he was any good for the Raiders. And then this is another one that would have looked good, and they truly should have done. Last year was Bashal Tutin late in the draft. Getting a running back probably would have been a better pick than a linebacker that they would cut immediately or a tight end who got hurt almost instantly. So, okay, let's get into your takes, your thoughts, your opinions, and how you're feeling about any of this stuff. Where to take a wide receiver, some of your best and worst takes ever. Let's dive into it. Let's go. Let me just get this settled there. There we go. DLM says Concepcion, Bell, Bernard. Yeah, we haven't talked about Jeremy Bernard much. Williams, etc. Day 2 has some nice wide receiver talent. I don't know if Concepcion is going to make it to the second round, but I totally agree with you. This feels like a really solid draft for wide receivers through day 2. And if the Vikings can land a solid role player, like, no, they would not be taking somebody. If you're getting Antonio Williams, he will never be Justin Jefferson, but you don't really need that. And we've discussed this at length, so I don't have to go into it. But if you get a guy who becomes Romeo Doubs gets paid $17 million. It's worth a lot. And also, this is going back to an older kind of study that was done, many years ago, but I think still holds up pretty well, that once you get to the playoffs, your wide receiver 2 and 3 options become more valuable because the defenses put so much emphasis on shutting down your wide receiver 1, and presumably the defenses you're facing are good, and they might have the capability to do that. So your wide receiver 2 and 3 is important. And I think if you get quality role players in the second or the third rounds here for the wide receiver 3 position, that helps everything. It helps KOC. It helps Kyler Murray. It helps Justin Jefferson, take a little pressure off of him. So I don't love the idea of just getting a deep guy. I think they need somebody who's a little more all around. Bernard is an interesting one too, from Alabama. He might be going under the radar because people seem to like Ty Simpson as a prospect, but he didn't play that great. So I think Bernard might have looked better. Reconnected a 5-round mock, LOL. Yeah. I love it though. I love the lunacy of doing a 5-round mock. And that's what amazes me though. The guys do it. The 5-round mock is for the whole league. And I thought he nailed it for the Vikings. Caleb Banks, we'll see, but the rest, that's a reasonable pick, but the rest of them, I was like, yes, those are picks that I think any Vikings fan would make. And you guys are focused on your team and know your team inside and out. This is an analyst who's covering the whole league and kind of nailed it. No Masters show. No, I'm going to tell you the truth about myself and the Masters. I am the most typical casual golf person. So I'll tune it in Sunday. And you know what's going to happen? Probably about once we get, where the final pair is on the 3rd or 4th, 5th hole, there's a nap that's going to happen. And then I'll wake up about 10 or 11 and then I'll watch to the end. And then everybody will be like, man, did you see that Masters? Oh yeah, absolutely. Watch the whole thing all the way through. So that's exactly the type of golf fan that I am in terms of watching. It's let me get that nap in on Sunday and then I'll catch the end. Son of Beavers, I once was able to draft Justin Jefferson in a mock thing, thinking there was no way he'd get to us. Also wanted to draft Bo Melton because I thought he could help on special teams. I guess Bo Melton, you could take a W for that. The Jefferson thing is crazy because, you go back and watch that draft and there's a bunch of receivers who are taken. No one could have ever predicted what was going to happen with Henry Ruggs, but Henry Ruggs versus Justin Jefferson is kind of a wild outcome. Ruggs was a pure speedster. He's the deep threat, and he was, showing some flashes in the NFL, but Jefferson was such an all-around wide receiver, route running, contested catch ability, and the one thing that kept coming back, the criticism for him was just wrong. It was, hey, I remember writing this story. I wrote a story and talked to Justin for it about why he wasn't drafted higher. And the main thing that kept coming up was that he played in the slot, but they had Jamar Chase and Terrace Marshall. Jamar Chase was going to play on the outside and Terrace Marshall was 6'5" or something. He wasn't going to play inside. So Jefferson took on that role, dominated college football, crushed the NFL combine. I was like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way. And you got to wonder, like, what would have happened if they had other receivers on the board and not, Justin Jefferson? How would we view that Stephon Diggs trade? DLM, best picks, called Jackson last year in the comment section. Also got Darisaw. Worst was thought Tavon Austin was going to be a stud. Well, let me tell you, you are not the only one. And Tavon Austin, though, is a cautionary tale because there is a little moth to flame with me when it comes to playmaking guys in college. I enjoy watching him. Zachariah Branch is this guy this year. Laviska Shenault was this guy. Watch Laviska Chenault's highlight reel. You're going to be like, holy cow. The guy who is the screen pass merchant, just destroys everybody in space, dodging tacklers, doesn't often work in the NFL because you're not actually that much faster than everyone in the NFL. When you're in college and you're out on that field, there might be two other guys you're playing against who will be in the NFL. And when you are out there in the NFL, you're against everyone who's there at the highest level. So they all ran 4.3s and 4.4s. And it just usually, that's why I was talking about Antonio Williams, where separation, route running detail, ball tracking, stuff like that tends to travel a little bit better than pure raw speed or agility or size, because you can dominate in college that way. But in the NFL, it's usually technique. And it's often, can you just get the details right? The plays work. If you can get the details right, then you're going to be open. So but you got to have, oftentimes you got to have something, a route running ability or ball tracking or something like that that's going to separate you. And Tavon Austin really didn't. It was, hey, what can you do with the ball in your hands? And you also can't really draw up an offense for a guy to constantly be getting reverses or bubble screens. Like, those things just don't work that well. The hashes aren't far enough apart for bubble screens to work all the time in the NFL. So you have to throw it down the field to those guys. But Tavon Austin, man, his college tape is crazy. His highlight reel is crazy. Giannis, when I saw how Addison acted in the draft green room, I took pity on whatever sucker was going to draft this head case. I think his personality from day one has been, like, there's questions about it, right? Exactly what you're saying. Like the draft room, some of the interviews that he did about wanting to get paid. Then it was even odd with the phone call where he hung up on the Vikings. And I know it's like oh, that's funny. He hung up on the Vikings. It was like, the heck happened there? It was a little bit weird. I don't think by any means, I've never heard that Jordan Addison is a bad teammate or that he doesn't work like crazy or that he doesn't care or doesn't want to win or doesn't want to be great or anything else like that. There's just something that doesn't quite click there with him sometimes. And yeah, I mean, you could see a little bit of that even early on, like, okay, like what's exactly the deal here? So I get where you're coming from with that. That's a good call. Dan says if the Vikings draft a wide receiver in round 2 or 3, does that mean Ty Felton is another blown pick by Quasi Analytics? Well, if you're going to say Quasi Analytics, you're going to have to listen to the show that Arif and I did breaking down why Quasi never did anything analytically when it came to the draft. And I don't know how Ty Felton would be an analytics pick. He was a wide receiver at number, what was he, like 98 or something, or 100 and I don't know, 2. I don't really understand the connection with Quasi Analytics. He just, actually, I wish that Quasi had an opportunity to use more analytics in his team building, but it seemed like he couldn't sell the room on that sort of stuff. So shrugs, but Ty Felton, no, it doesn't. If they draft another wide receiver in the 3rd round, when you get past the 2nd round, you're taking shots at guys and you're just hoping that something works out and somebody works into a certain type of role. This is not a 1st round draft pick, although I would still be for it because of the positional value. It would mean that Ty Felton has to compete. Oh no, has to compete, but you want numbers at that position. You want different skill sets. You want role players. You want as many of these wide receivers coming and going as you could possibly have. So no, it doesn't have to mean that. They've developed players really well in the past. So I mean, we can't make a decision on Ty Felton yet because we've seen these other guys succeed. And I really don't understand the next comment from Reconnected. Don't let Keenan McCardle pick the receiver. What? Since Keenan McCardle's been here, they've developed Justin Jefferson into the best receiver in the world. They drafted Jordan Addison, who's been phenomenal. They developed KJ Osborne into a better role player here than he was anywhere else. Jalen Naylor just got paid, $12 million as a development project. I'm not sure I follow. I think the guy is about the best wide receiver coach in the NFL. So, yeah. And I mean, why are we down on Ty Felton? He hasn't even gotten a chance yet. I mean, he was just a draft pick last year, and they had 3 wide receivers ahead of him. He would have played if anybody got hurt, but nobody did. Just because they draft another 3rd-round wide receiver does not mean Felton is cooked. Like, you can have 4, believe it or not. I mean, I just don't understand this line of thinking at all. Mr. Mayor says, I can't get behind a 1st-round wide receiver, but a day 2 would be pretty cool. There's no way we pay Addison long-term, not because of off-the-field stuff, because it's wasteful to pay 2 wide receivers. And it's not wasteful to pay 2 wide receivers if you have a rookie quarterback contract, but they won't if they keep Kyler Murray. So it's a bit of a fluid situation. If they keep Kyler Murray, then a long-term for Jordan Addison is pretty tricky, I think. The reality of the 1st-round wide receiver or anything else is, if you're looking for the best possible player, you have to draft them higher. This year, there's a handful of guys that could be difference makers, but I also think that even though the ceiling for the day 2 wide receivers might not be wide receiver 1 or the next Jake Reed necessarily or Chris Carter, they do have specific skill sets that you could see working really well. That in this role, even the deep threat guys, like I'm not against them. I just think that there's a lot of busts with that group. But if it's a Chris Brazzell II, I mean, that's a big guy, great speed, downfield threat, stretch the field, clear out routes, stuff like that, deep shots. That works for me. Is he ever going to be Justin Jefferson? Definitely not. But could he go down the field and be effective? Absolutely. If he gets 40 catches, 35 catches, that's bringing huge value for someone drafted in day 3. But if you want to have, this is just the truth, if you want to have the best chance to put together a greatest show on turf or 3 deep around your quarterback, you probably have to draft him in the 1st round, which is why I wouldn't be against it at all. If they do it, I'm totally for it. Son of Beavers thought that Malik Willis was going to go in the 1st round and Shedeur Sanders as well. Well, you're not alone. That we always put a little bit too much belief and trust in the draft analysts who are just guessing. And even the ones who claim to have X amount of intel or whatever else, I will continue to say it time and time again, is nobody tells anyone who they're drafting. So it's great that, you heard this or heard that. You can put it in your articles, your tweets, or whatever. They don't tell you who's drafting. Not only that, but the people who do maybe talk out of school, okay, great. But are they the ones making the pick? Because I promise you the general managers are not telling who they're going to pick. So it's always a little bit confusing going in, which is part of why it's great. Like, we can mock it, we could think about it, we could talk about it. But once Christmas Day arrives, it's like you can make your list, but what Santa brings in the box, you don't really know until you open it. That's why the draft is still so great. But I mean, Malik Willis, that one was crazy. There were certain draft analysts who were mocking him as number 2 overall, which is so insane. And then he goes in the 3rd round, like, okay. But then the same thing goes for Shedeur, where everybody was convinced. And my thing with Shedeur is, this is a little bit of what we do just in general as a society. I follow the WNBA closely. The Chicago Sky just traded Angel Reese. They got 2 first-round draft picks for someone who's maybe like the 40th best player in the league. And that's a good trade. Her team was terrible and they were a joke. And like, they don't get any credit for anything. But people celebrity worship so much with her that they way overrate what she actually is on the floor. She's good. Being the 40th best player in a league in the world is phenomenal, but people think that she's like the 3rd best player in the league, and it doesn't really hold up. And I think that happened with Shedeur Sanders, where they were sold by the name, they were wowed by the celebrity, they loved the debate. I think that was another thing. It was like a made-for-TV prospect. Let's argue about Shedeur Sanders. That'll get eyeballs. Everybody knows who he is. He's got the big name, but they ignored a lot. He took sacks like crazy. His average depth of target was nothing. His athleticism is bad. He refused to participate in the combine, which was ridiculous for a quarterback of his talent, where JJ McCarthy and Michael Penix and those guys and Bo Nix all did it the year before, but he was too good for that. He acted entitled at the combine during the press availability, reportedly behind the scenes. He was bad in the interviews. It's like, all that stuff was flashing red lights. This guy might not be a first round draft pick. I didn't think he was going to be. And the draft analysts ignored it because it was a great debate. It was a great conversation. And so they continued to hammer that home. And honestly, I thought that last year the draft broadcast was ruined by how much focus there was on a 5th round quarterback, but he is still QB1 and a Pro Bowler. So I guess maybe there's that. 1622J says PFF's 2020 draft profile of Jefferson is one for the ages. Round 2 projection. Joe Burrow drove his success. Slot receivers not coveted. Absolutely. There were a lot of people who thought that, including in the NFL, that he was just not that great of a prospect, that his success was driven by that offense and how many good receivers. He wasn't the best receiver on his own team. Oh yeah, there's a reason the Vikings ended up getting him. It's not just PFF. I mean, there was a lot of people who thought that he wasn't that great of a prospect, but production at the end of the day told the story. And I just think that there was some common sense that might have been missed by that. But, that's the draft, right? Is if people knew what Justin Jefferson was going to be, he would have been taken a lot higher. Or if, hey, go look at some Patrick Mahomes ones. His footwork will never translate. He just plays backyard football. And a real football team with all sorts of scouts and executives and all these people who are paid to do this picked Leonard Fournette instead of Patrick Mahomes. So it's like, I don't know. P. Gullick, you like Brazel? We could take a closer look at Brazel, but a great athlete, downfield guy. Mr. Mayor willing to give McCardle the benefit of the doubt whether or not Felton was a good choice in the 3rd round. It's the last pick in the 3rd round. I mean, if it doesn't work out, the chances that it works out in general are like 25% or less for the end of the 3rd round. That's how much, I mean, it is a steep drop off. By the middle of the 2nd round, it goes to the floor for success rate. Usually at the very top of the draft, of course, it's the most value. But by the time you even get to the 10th pick, it's like 50-50 from the 10th to the 20th pick. And it goes down from there. So it's a little bit odd to me how some people have treated the Ty Felton draft pick as if it's like, I don't know, as if it was like a 1st round draft pick. Like, why is he not playing? What's going on? This guy, what if he doesn't, who's responsible if he doesn't work out? Like, who's responsible? This is a dice roll at the end of the 3rd round. What are we talking about here? And then I also thought that if he can get on the field to be a gunner like that, it does speak well to his toughness, his ability to escape against physical players. And maybe he rotates in, or maybe he wins a job. We just don't really know. But I mean, Keenan McCardle, he is as good as it gets for a wide receiver coach. But I mean, if you expect every single pick from a guy that's the last pick of the 3rd round to nail it, and that's the standard, either that or you're a moron. Like, that's pretty tough. That's a pretty tough standard because most of those picks don't really turn into superstars. JoJo says last wide receiver we took was primarily in the slot in college, worked out pretty well, and Williams is a stud. I just really like Antonio Williams' profile. Let's go back real quick and take a look at a couple of these guys on the. And you can't blame me for messing around nonstop with the beast here from The Athletic and Dane Brugler, because it's just such an incredible resource. You got this search feature here. You can just type in your guy, and right there comes up Antonio. It's really great. It's just really great. And so much information, so much background. So shout out to him. Not yet 22 years old for Antonio Williams. And this is from Brugler, his takeaway: a competitive, versatile athlete. There's more to his game than meets the eye. He isn't a slot-only wide receiver, but projects best inside and has some Khalil Shakir to his game. His size is pretty good, a 4'1", 39-inch vertical. He's almost 6 feet tall, 187. Strengths, quick-footed athlete with burst off his plant foot to create separation mid-route. That's the one right there that I'm always looking at. Glider in space with enough speed to work vertically. I mean, that's the thing, is like, he might be a slot guy, but he runs a 4.41. It's not like he's slow. Does it have his stats here? Yeah, college stats. He had 75 catches for 904 yards and 11 touchdowns. So I do. That was in 2024. Last year, the numbers went down a little bit, but he also got rid of the drops. So I like him. I like him quite a bit. Let's take a look at Brazel, because I think it was P. Gullick who liked Brazel. I haven't talked a lot about Malachi Fields. I feel like there hasn't been a lot of discussion about him. Let's take a look at Brazel. He's wide receiver 17 here, 22 years old. The takeaway is Brazel still has a long way to go before becoming a complete receiver, but he is a long striding athlete and dangerous vertical threat with surprising savvy for his size. He has the talent to become a team's number 2 or 3 option. So there seems to be a little bit more on the risk side with Brazel than there would be Williams, but he's 6'4", 437. That's pretty good. What were his numbers? Let's take a look. Over 1,000 yards, 16 yards a catch, 9 touchdowns, 2 drops. That's what I'm saying about how there are good, impressive receivers here. That guy's 6'4", 1,000-yard wide receiver, runs a 4.37. Like, okay. Needs a little more refinement. I'd probably take the glider who is good at separating, but either one seems fine. VXL Palma, deep threat with a good catch radius would be a nice addition. That's what we're talking about with Brazel is 6'4" guy who runs a 4.37. Don't hate it. I mean, imagine that if it works out next to Jefferson and Addison, at least for the next 2 years, Kyler Murray would have to feel pretty good about that. Mr. Mayor, separation means that you get open. I think contested catch artists are kind of worthless except for very few dudes. It just really, really depends on the guy. Like, when I watch Denzel Boston play, it's not just contested catches for him. It's the way he tracks the football. So I see a lot of Adam Thielen and Denzel Boston. Thielen was a little shorter, but I think only by like an inch. I think he's like 6'3", and not the fastest. He's fast, but he's not like a 4.2. Kind of a truck, like broke tackles in his prime and was just really great at tracking and catching the football. I think that there's a lot of value in that if it's in the right circumstances, but I also certainly think that separation is kind of king because a lot of times you need to go one-on-one. If I'm banking on one of the other, if it's only one or the other, and I think Boston can create better separation than people give him credit for, but because his highlight reel's a lot of contested catches, so you don't see the routine ones where he runs a good route and gets open. Anyway, not the point. I generally agree with you, though, that contested catch rate, I don't know how well that travels into the NFL because you're just facing a totally different level of competition. And even the best contested catch guys, I mean, they get it maybe 5-10% more than average contested catch guys, which is, a few plays a year. But there are, I think Jefferson in a given season would have maybe 25 contested catches and he makes like 105 total catches. It makes up a smaller percentage than getting open on a route. And the other thing that really doesn't go talked about enough is intelligence. And that is an absolute must for the wide receiver position, but it's almost impossible to know from college to the NFL is how much can this guy handle mentally? Because in college, this is why I like slot wide receivers coming from college, because normally they don't just line up in the slot every play. They line up all over the field, which means that they've got probably a deeper bag of routes that they are asked to run, formations that they're asked to memorize, but it's nothing like the NFL with all the different stuff you have to read and react to. So I think IQ ends up playing really heavily into this, and I don't know which one of these receivers is the smartest guy and can handle the most. And sometimes it isn't even like, oh, well, he's an academic All-American. Great. But he can't remember, the things that he needs to remember for where he's supposed to line up or route depths or something like that. So, there are savants too. That's why it's complicated to scout these guys. DLM, I know you're not supposed to helmet scout, but Clemson does have a rep for putting out good wide receiver talent. There are, I think, more reasons to helmet scout now than there used to be because of the way that the NIL type of thing works. And, certain players are attracted to certain places, but also people are always kind of trying to move up the ladder. So if it's a guy at a university that wasn't that great, and this is like a Skylar Bell, you wonder about the competition because everyone's moving up out of those bad programs into the best ones. And the competition, I think if you're Clemson, is thicker than ever and more difficult than ever, where in Indiana can win a national championship. We never would have dreamed that before. So good programs that have a lot of investment, they're just attracting like magnets the talent. And I think that SEC teams, Big Ten teams, there's just so much more talent there now, even than there would have been where it was more spread out. So you can helmet scout a little bit, I think. DLM Pons would make no sense. He's a slot guy and we paid. Well, first of all, Byron Murphy's not really a slot guy and he was paid in a role where he played outside. I just totally disagree that he's a slot guy. I think if you've watched him closely, try watching him closely and tell me that that's a slot guy. And don't think about his height. Just watch him play, watch how he plays. And Antoine Winfield, by the way, back in the day was not just a slot guy. He could play anywhere. He could play slot or he could play outside. And it's more about the athleticism, the length, because when you're talking about him facing off with bigger wide receivers, well, he's got strength, he's got toughness, he has incredible athletic ability. And when the ball goes up for those contested catches that we're talking about, and he's jumping 43 feet in the air and he's got wingspan, well, what difference does it make if he's at 5'9", if the same height that he's reaching? Like I am almost ish 6'2", but there are NBA players who have been 5'7" who can dunk. I can't dunk. Which matters more, right? Which matters more? Once upon a time, I could hang on the rim, but not anymore. Maybe that's a goal for the summer. See if I could get back up to the rim. Mr. Mayer is way out on Banks. Fair. I think it's fair to be out on Banks because of the injury concerns. That concerns me as well. That would be you're taking a big swing. Forrest. Omar Cooper is a dog. Totally agree. Like him at 18 if Thieneman isn't there. Otherwise, Peter Woods might have all-pro potential. He was asked to do things that didn't lead to stat production. That's one where I know that's true, and I agree with you that that's true, but I also kind of hesitate on that one because a lot of guys have different roles that they have to take on. A lot of guys have a lot of attention, and that's always kind of an excuse. I think if you're not able to produce much in college, that the idea you're suddenly going to figure out how to produce at the NFL level is a little dubious to me, or at least the odds aren't that great. But I still think Woods is good, and I think he's a very good fit for the Vikings. I have him as the safest possible pick for the Vikings. And I actually just recorded a podcast with Max Chadwick that we go really in depth, and he loves Peter Woods. But also we kind of agreed that even if Woods doesn't work out, he still will work out. He'll still be fine and a contributor, even if he is not a home run. But I like the upside too, because I think he showed that was it his sophomore year? He showed some upside. Either one of those. I mean, I like Cooper a lot though. I agree. I definitely like Cooper a lot. Dan says the Vikings must make the safest, surest selection. No leap of faith picks. Well, there is really no such thing though. I mean, we talk about safe picks. There's no such thing as the surest selection because anybody could be a bust. I mean, go back, you talk about going back and looking at those Justin Jefferson draft, analysis. Go back and look at Lewis Cine. I mean, try to find on the Lewis Cine draft analysis where it went wrong. It's actually hard to find. He had the size, the athleticism. He was the best defensive player on Georgia in the national championship game. Like, he checked a lot of boxes. And safeties, as we know, don't usually go that high. So he was picked right around where Nicky Minwari was picked. There's really no such thing as a perfectly safe draft pick because anyone can have things go wrong, including injuries. But I understand what you're getting at. Like the safe selection to try to make sure that you get a guy that fits, get a guy that helps right away, get a guy that has a high floor is probably Dylan Thieneman. But that doesn't mean necessarily it's the right pick. Let's take just a second. I'll be back to your comments in a moment. But first, want to tell you guys about our friends over at ZipRecruiter. As you know, building the old Purple Insider was not something I was able to just do overnight by myself. had a lot of help from my friends, and some of which turned into guys that work for me, like Manny Hill making his weekly appearances. Jonathan Harrison does a ton of work that you never see behind the scenes. And the reason that those guys are so great is because they're passionate. So if you are a hiring person and looking for your business to find passionate people, it's not the easiest thing to get from a resume unless you post on ZipRecruiter. So now you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/audio. Candidates can tell you in their own words why they're interested. And also ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology finds qualified candidates quickly. Throw those two together and what do you got? A new feature where you can find the most interested and qualified candidates first, so you meet the right people fastest. Find candidates who really want your job on ZipRecruiter. 4 out of every 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate in the first day. Try it for free at ziprecruiter.com/audio. That is ziprecruiter.com/audio. Meet your match on ZipRecruiter. Okay, let's get back to your thoughts. So that's the thing about the sure and the safe projection is you could try to go safe, but what if there's limited upside? What if the guy has an injury? What if it doesn't work out? What if he's not the fit that you thought? Somebody told me once, I can't remember who in the league, that they remember meeting with certain people on these 30 visits and then drafting them based in part on what they saw when they met them and going back, a year later and being like, who was that person? Who was that guy? Because it wasn't how he acted when we actually got him in the building. So you never really truly know. But I think the safest and surest picks are probably Peter Woods and Dylan Thieneman. Kyle wants to trade up for Jeremiah Love. I cannot argue with you that would be awesome on multiple levels. One, I will be live during the draft, breaking down every single pick. And if we got to number 9 and they were trading up or whatever it is, number 7, I don't know, and they were trading up for Jeremiah Love, it would be very exciting on the show. There's been some great moments of doing live draft broadcasts, including when Atlanta took Michael Penix or, like different things have happened. The Vikings making the crazy trade up for Dallas Turner, stuff like that. It's always wild to do that show. And if they trade up for Jeremiah Love, it would be, it's on. I mean, the 2026 Minnesota Vikings offense now has potential to skyrocket, but how realistic is that? Probably not really, because I think the price tag would be very high for the Vikings to do something like that. This is a team that loves a big splash, though. Historically, the Vikings are never afraid to be the team that goes out on the limb and does something kind of crazy. Mr. Mayor, what is it about the safety position that makes it so much more cheap and replaceable? Is it just an easy position to play relative to other players? That's a great question. I think that there's a few different things. Number one is it's very running back-like in that everything happening around the safety position usually dictates its impact. So if you have, just look at Seattle. If you have Byron Murphy and DeMarcus Lawrence, and you have, who else they have there? Leonard Williams. Like you have this great, and they had Boye Mafe, amazing defensive line. You have great linebackers. You've got great corners. Then those guys can cook. They can run all over the field. They can make plays. You have quarterbacks who are under duress, who are throwing balls up for you to make plays on. They're checking down and you can come downhill and make, big tackles and stuff. But if your D-line stinks and your linebackers don't cover and your cornerbacks don't communicate all that well or something, safeties can get just left on an island and be bad. And we've seen it from Harrison Smith, where there were years where Harrison Smith, he's still Harrison Smith, but his impact was very limited because everything else was going wrong around him. 2022 is a good example of that. I mean, I remember in 2022, we talked about it. Like Harrison looks like he's kind of done, but then here we are in 2025 and he's playing great at the end of this season. Well, what's the difference? That they had everybody healthy on the front seven. It's a nasty front seven. It's Flores' defense. So there's a lot of your success that's dictated from other things around you, which is not the usually the case for defensive tackle or edge rusher. Edge rusher is, Myles Garrett, go beat that guy. Von Miller, go beat that guy. And you do it over and over again and get paid $40 million and it's wonderful. So I think that's part of it. I also think that there are a lot of guys who are very, very close in skill set, and there are only a few that are total game changers. That there are a lot of those regular quality guys who can make plays if the ball is coming their way and aren't necessarily special. There are, I don't know, 40 of them in the league, but there's only 5 who are total game changers. Linebackers a little like this as well. So I think that that's kind of what it is. It's far away from the football. It's not DT. It's not right over the guy. It's not edge rusher who's getting strip sacks and pressures and really dictating what happens there. It's not corners who are matched up one-on-one with the best wide receivers. So I think that that's what it really is from the safety position of why the NFL views it as largely replaceable. And because the league views it as replaceable, there's a lot of free agents every year who are out there that you could potentially go sign and, fill the spot. I wonder about the defensive tackle. It's just interesting. I see draft analysts all the time about the Vikings talking about the safety position as if it is a total catastrophe. They have no idea what they're going to do without Harrison Smith. And I don't know if that's the take from Brian Flores. They developed Jay Ward for a number of years. He stepped on the field and played really well last year. I can't say we can count out Theo Jackson as a rotational player as part of this thing. Josh Metellus has a big contract and needs to be playing every single play. And whether that's deep or in the box or taking over the Harrison Smith role, it might not be as settled as it seems to, I guess, the mock draft universe. I don't know. Mr. Mayor says trading up feels like the worst possible choice, but it's also the most fun, Mr. Mayor. Russell says change Banks out with one of the first round wide receivers, and would love that the 5 round mock that we looked at earlier. Banks at 18 doesn't feel good. There's such a wide range of opinions for him. There are people who think that he's a top 15 prospect. There are people who have him way down as more of a second round draft pick because all of the risks. The risks to me are a lot. So yeah, I guess if it was, well, yeah, I mean, you know that I would give it an A if it was a wide receiver there, but there are other players that it could go there since they got in that 5 round mock Pons in the second round. But I mean, if it was like Peter Woods or something, it would be kind of checking every single box that we're looking for. DLM with so many positions of need and depth and depth is a huge priority. Trading up and losing assets doesn't seem like the move. Yeah, I overall agree with you. Totally. It's a little bit of this push and pull of, I know it's not the right move to trade up for a running back. It's definitely not. Is a position that still comes along with a lot of risk. And there's the price tag built into a first round running back is that as soon as you draft them, they're already one of the most highest paid players at their position, which is crazy, right? Like that's how little running backs still get paid, is that guy is already going to be one of the 10 highest paid. So not only are you spending a first round pick, not only are you spending other assets, but also in terms of for that position, you're paying more than most teams in the NFL right off the bat. It's a big sacrifice to take that guy, but it would be entertaining. And now this is where someone will say, why draft a running back? They'll never run the ball anyway. Norse Force, ESPN has us taking Spencer Fano at number 18. Oh, well, the Purple Insider show did suggest that that might be a good idea. I think people might be catching on a little bit to the idea that this tackle position is not settled for the future. And also, you have to keep in mind that tackles need time to develop. So if you drafted someone like Fano, then he could be a backup right away. I promise you he'll play. And then a long-term option at right tackle. It really depends on what's going on behind the scenes with Brian O'Neill and the Vikings. If Brian O'Neill's price tag is too high, I mean, let's just assume, I don't know what's going to happen, but let's assume that Christian Darrisaw is going to be fine. And he's going to be your franchise left tackle. And last year was just a fluke. And he's going to heal fully this time and he's going to be good to go. Are you going to pay 2 tackles $60 million combined plus? It's worth it. Tackle's a great position to have, but that's a lot. If you're also going to pay Jefferson, the 5th-year option for Jordan Addison is expensive. in 2027. So you're going to have 2 receivers and 2 tackles making up, and I know this isn't exact cap hits, but 60 million from the tackles and another, Addison's going to get like 19 from that 5th-year option and then 30 and then 40. So like 100 million on 4 players is a lot. If you sign Kyler Murray to an extension, that's a lot from the quarterback position as well. You're paying your guard 18 million, although I think this could be the last year for Will Fries. That's just a lot. It's a huge investment, which it would make some sense, even though I think O'Neal is a guy that you'd like to have as a Viking for life. But if he's looking for $30 million, I don't know how you can do it. They have to draw a line in the sand there. DLM 2022, they drafted for need and BPA wasn't a factor at all. I don't remember how the 2022 draft played out exactly. Oh yeah. Yeah. For need, because I'm trying to think of what they needed in 2022 versus, I felt like they needed everything. Wasn't that the explanation? I don't know. They drafted for need. You're right. They drafted for need. And it was also the explanation that they tried to fill every need. Because I was trying to think about, well, why did they draft a safety? But they didn't know that Cam Bynum was so good. And they didn't know that Josh Metellus could play. And they also probably thought that Harrison Smith was going to retire, because most safeties don't go past about 34 years old. It's very rare to get where Harrison Smith is right now. I think that, Troy Polamalu had retired by 34 or 35. So they probably figured, all right, Harry's going to retire. You're right. Yeah, they went for need there. They had nothing at corner. They went for need there. I was good with the corner pick. Just Andrew Booth Jr. and the injuries was not inspiring, but I was good with corner pick. But that guard was another one. Well, you need guard. You're just going to go for it. I'm okay with guard. It was really about how much they reached to get that guard, where most of the projections were in the 4th round. So, but you're right. Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. I'm going to assume it's pronounced, we'll just call you Jack, J-A-C. I wonder about running back Nicholas Singleton, explosive, able to get to the outside, 20 highlight reel. In my amateur opinion, want Nicholas Singleton on my Vikings team. Okay. 20 minute highlight reel. Gotcha. Well, let's take a look. And this is the great thing about having the Athletics huge draft profile here is, I have a lot of respect for Brugler. And I feel like I have a good sense for, his strengths and weaknesses too over the many years. So, but he just does really, really thorough work on these guys. So we can call up almost any prospect. So if I don't know them that well, let's take a look. So Singleton is 22 years old. And the takeaway on him is Singleton could be a frustrating watch because of his inconsistent run discipline and vision, but he offers big play potential with an exceptional blend of size and speed. From day one, his pass catching and kick return skills will expand the ways in which an NFL team can utilize his talent. At the combine, he didn't do anything, and let's take a look at his stats. He, I guess, didn't play that much this year because he only had 123 carries for 4.5 yards per carry. But in 2024, he was amazing. 6.4 yards per carry, 12 touchdowns, 41 catches. That's pretty good. So the only thing is that sounds a little much like, kind of like Ty Chandler, where this is sort of my Jonah Coleman argument, is Jonah Coleman's not setting anybody's socks on fire. It's not going to be that exciting of a prospect. At the same time, Jonah Coleman is a refined player who I think will really understand everything that you need to do offensively. And that is a huge percentage of being successful in the NFL. If you have a guy who doesn't know where to run and just gets taken down in the backfield, it doesn't matter how fast he is or if he can't pass protect. So that's my concern with Mike Washington. That's my concern with Nicholas Singleton. I think the athletic traits are there, but are they actually going to be better than Emmett Johnson or Jonah Coleman, who seem to be more natural running backs? That's the Bucky Irving thing. Like, Bucky Irving had a bad combine, but he was a natural running back with intelligence and ability to read blocks and quick decision-making, which is, I think, really important. So that's the push and pull. Now, if they drafted Singleton in the 5th round, like they did Ty Chandler, why not? but you're probably not getting someone who's really going to impact your offense unless you take him a little bit higher. DLM, we all thought Wyatt Davis was going to be a beast. We missed there. I mean, that he had everything. He had the skill set. He had the production. It was just came down to a guy who wasn't driven, I think, to be good. Or maybe there was an injury there we didn't know about. I don't know. He never came across to me like he was exactly a glass eater. He came across like he was a very nice and very smart guy. And I remember thinking that when they drafted him, like, wow, this guy's like really bright and very friendly. And there are all pros who are very bright and very friendly. So like those are good traits, but maybe didn't have that, you know what, and vinegar to his game that is necessary, or the drive, or that you just have no idea. And you know what's crazy is the number of times where there's been a draft pick, and Brian Asamoah was like this for me. They drafted Brian Asamoah. I did the same thing as everyone else. I went to YouTube. I watched a bunch of him, and I was like, okay, that works. It looks like the modern linebacker. He looks like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, where he's a little undersized, but he's sideline to sideline, super fast. Like this looks great. And then we get to rookie minicamp, and he's out there, and I'm like, oh no. That looks like a running back. This is just not going to work. This is not going to work. And there were some moments for him early on with Ed Donatel that it looked like maybe it would. He just wasn't big enough. I mean, there's linebackers in the league who have worked at being undersized, but not that much undersized. And that's how it goes sometimes, where you think it's a great pick. On paper, it looks like a great pick. And then, I mean, even Kellen Mond, the way he performed in college, you thought, okay, well, maybe there's something to develop there. I didn't love that draft pick just because he didn't have crazy production in college or whatever, but who knows, right? And we get to rookie minicamp, OTAs. It's like that. Okay, well, that's over. That's not going to work. You can't throw a football like that and play in the NFL. So people inside the building, they scouted him, they watched him, they saw him, but it's a totally different world. How do you handle yourself around a building? How do you fit in an NFL culture with pros, with grown-ups, with coaches, with also, they do not care. Like Brian Flores will play an undrafted free agent over you. It doesn't matter that you're drafted in the third round. Like entitlement's a big thing too. So that's why the draft is so tricky. Everybody thought Wyatt Davis in the third round was a great pick, but we didn't know that he wasn't that into it. The NFL's hard as heck too. It's really, really hard. I mean, the schedule is hard and the work is hard, and you have to really love, guys will say this and we kind of go, okay, whatever, like the process of getting to game day, because it's a ton of work. And that's why Harrison Smith's an all-time great, because he loves all that. But I mean, you have to put in a lot, and it hurts, and there's guys that hit the heck out of you. And like, I don't know, if you don't really, really, really love it, it's not a fun experience at all, I think. Mr. Mayor's still leery of trading up after the Turner pick, even though he was the best player. He still wasn't worth 5 to 7 picks otherwise would have had if we hadn't. I mean, that's not one that I think is quite told accurately when it's relived, because they traded up for the first round pick with the expectation that they might need to make a trade up to get Drake May. And once that was off the table, and they tried, and they called the Patriots and tried at the last minute, reportedly, to get Drake May. So that's why they got that second first round pick. I don't include that as part of the Dallas Turner trade. That was insurance to draft a quarterback. They could not walk out of the 2024 draft without one, but they still did give up an arm and a leg to move up to get Dallas Turner, which at the time I thought was great. But then you look at what they gave up, even to, was it Jacksonville that they made the trade with? You go, that is a lot for one guy. And so often, trading up, okay, it worked out great to get Will Anderson, but did it work out great for Travis Hunter? Probably not for Jacksonville. A lot of times those big trades up, I remember when New Orleans did it to get Marcus Davenport, and we were like, what? That's a lot, man. Or James Pierce last year. You're putting so many eggs in one basket. That's why moving up to get Jeremiah Love, well, it would be lots of fun it probably is not the pragmatic move to make. JP Banks' problem isn't just injury. He hasn't played like a guy his size or even been that productive, even against the run, which he should be given his size. Woods has a higher floor and also can develop. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, if you were giving me the choice, if I'm on the board right now and I don't know, Rob Brzezinski calls me, I'm live on the show, but he says, hey, take 5 and tell me, should we take Banks or Woods? And, of course, Rob would ask me something like that. I don't know why he wouldn't. I would say take Woods because Banks is just so risky. And you know what? If someday Caleb Banks turns into Linval Joseph or whatever, some freak monster who gets 8 sacks a year and stuffs the run and, I don't know, destroys everything in his path, I'll live with that because it was really risky to take him. And there's got to be a high bust rate when you have multiple of the same injury and you don't have production. But if they did take him, it would be a huge swing on the upside, which is risky, but sometimes it works out. Norris Force, you cried when the Vikings drafted Derek Alexander instead of Warren Sapp and Darren Nelson over Marcus Allen. There are some that you just know. Antoine Winfield Jr. is that for me. Sometimes you just know. And another one, if we're going all draft, which, I'd love to hear any of those from you guys as well. Lamar Jackson was the one where, as he was dropping down the board, I was just losing my mind. Just, how is this possible? How is this possible that Lamar Jackson is not being taken high? In that same draft, I was a big Josh Rosen fan, so I missed on that one. But Lamar Jackson, watching him in college, this is so special. We have never seen anything like this since Randall Cunningham in his prime or Michael Vick. This is the only other guys who have ever done this. Where they really missed is he could definitely throw the football. It was just that they didn't have great wide receivers and him pushing it to the outsides, he just didn't have much juice. But when he was throwing in the middle of the field, it was really effective from the pocket. I was very sold on the idea that Lamar Jackson was going to work out. So I didn't shed actual tears, but that was probably the most that I was getting as worked up as you. And like, what is going on? I've been thinking about some writing articles about rewatching some drafts, and the Warren Sapp one is one that I want to look back at. I did 2 of them last year at purpleinsider.football, the newsletter. So I'm thinking about if I can find it on YouTube, going back and watching the Warren Sapp draft. He smoked that wacky weed. It's just terrible of him. Which I guess he says he didn't, but I don't care if he did. Like, this is so funny. They used to make guys, if there was some weed connection, they would make the guy to be Al Capone. And it's like, what? And now we're like, I don't know. He's probably smoking pot on his way home. Who cares? Anyway, it was always the weirdest thing. I used to have a thing on the show going way back of always draft the weed guy because I was borderline obsessed with Tyrann Mathieu. And I thought, whoever drafts Tyrann Mathieu, this guy's going to be unbelievable and they're going to get a total steal. And that was another one of being right. Again, plenty of wrong, but that was another one of being right, was draft the weed guy, draft the Warren Sapp, draft the Tyrann Mathieu, because that doesn't really matter that much. Randy Moss was kind of the weed guy too. It just, and now we don't even discuss it. Doesn't even matter. Doesn't make any difference whatsoever. It used to be, it would be hard to explain to someone who's 19 years old and just getting into the draft. Like, once upon a time, if a guy tested positive for pot, it was like the worst thing that could ever happen in the drafts. I mean, to think about that now is really funny. Doomer KO laughed my butt off when the Bears took Mitch Trubisky. Hadn't seen him play in person. When they did that, I said, really, this guy? Turns out I didn't laugh hard enough. That was another one. And I always want to balance this out with, one where I'm wrong, one where I'm right. There is a tweet, it still exists, that I said on that draft day, Patrick Mahomes will become the best draft pick in this class. I did say that. I didn't get that one either. And I long had a thing, and maybe I should still apply it to Ty Simpson, but I feel like the NFL caught on. The late rising, hey, where did this guy come from? He doesn't have very good stats, but they're all kind of talking about him. That quarterback busted so many times in a row. It was like Blake Bortles, Blaine Gabbert, Ryan Tannehill's like a mid-bust, but kind of a bust. Ryan Tannehill, where did these guys come from? Even EJ Manuel was someone where I didn't have him on my radar at all as somebody that could be a first-round draft pick. And then he was projected as like a third rounder, and then bang, out of nowhere, Christian Ponder was this, as you remember the famous Mayock meltdown. So yeah, there's that kind of guy tends to not work out. Either they just didn't have great numbers, or you hadn't heard of them during the college season and suddenly they show up at your doorstep. Mitch Trubisky was draftable, but he certainly was not the top quarterback. Aaron, if Irv Smith didn't play in that preseason game, what could have been? I know it seemed to take a real toll there because he missed a lot of time. And then he came back, he was with KOC, and he had a drop against the Eagles, right? Didn't that happen? Am I misremembering this? That he played... I'm trying to remember if this is right, that he had like a really bad drop against the Eagles in a game that they lost, maybe that they got kind of blown out in. And that was sort of it for him with KOC. And then he was just nowhere to be found. And I believe he's like a blocking tight end for the Texans most recently. It just seemed to be the final straw with his body, because we absolutely saw some of the flashes with Irv Smith. And I thought he was going to be a great tight end, and it just didn't end up working out. Injuries are so tough. Doomer KO, I thought the Bengals were morons for picking Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell. Turns out everybody got to be right. There was big debates back then of who you're going to take. Is it a tackle? Is it a wide receiver? And there was this little cute graphic that people were spreading around and everything else. And it also turned out that Joe Burrow was just fine with pressure and was able to take a team to the Super Bowl and could overcome the pressure. The answer is truly both. Wide receiver is more valuable than tackle. That is just a fact. I mean, you go look at what the top guys make versus what the top tackles. It's about $10 million gap right now. So that tells you how the NFL truly feels about that position. But the elite wide receivers drive the success of your offense. The elite tackles allow your offense to have a chance to make stars out of wide receivers that aren't Jamar Chase by giving you time. And look, there's a huge difference between quarterbacks under pressure and quarterbacks clean. So you can make every side of the argument, but the answer is really both are premium positions. And if you can draft guys that good, you just draft them. You don't even think too much about it. But Chase was really, really, really special. And I think that Sewell, even though he is a great talent, as a pass protector, there are some shortcomings. And I just mean he's really great and not Trent Williams. He's just good. But maybe there's a little bit of a shortcoming there. I'm curious to see how he plays at left tackle as opposed to right tackle. We'll see on that. But yeah, I mean, that was a fun debate between those two, and it turned out everybody was right. Iconic says the Vikings aren't getting that safety from Oregon. Dylan Thieneman. If he and Emmanuel McNeil-Warren are taken as high as people think that they're going to be taken, it would go totally against recent history, which I'm not saying it couldn't, or it won't, but it would. And that would be an interesting twist to this draft, is we just don't really even see this. Even Xavier McKinney, I've mentioned Eamon Ware, but there's a lot of top safeties that have been drafted early in the second round instead of in the first. I was looking up today Darnell Savage, who was a first round safety. He's actually my concern for one of these guys. Is if you become Darnell Savage, who was okay for a couple years for Green Bay and was a mid-pack safety and has kind of bounced around since, that is a huge miss. Even if the guy's a starter and he's pretty good, it's still a huge miss at that position, which is why I'm not as sold on the idea of taking a safety there. Jack, I'm leery of defensive tackle Caleb Banks, consistently graded low on the field by PFF, though through his whole college career. It's not going to get better in the NFL. I mean, that's right, because oftentimes if you can't dominate in college, I mean, I think it's the right line of thinking. I don't know what's going to happen, but why is it that you're supposed to be better in the NFL? And there's a lot of excuses that get made. Well, it's this, it was an injury, it was the usage, it was the this or that or the other thing. But at the end of the day, you should be destroying people in college. And his numbers by PFF are not atrocious, but they certainly don't wow you. And I tend to lean in that direction. It would be a big projection. It would be a big, I think, stretch to say that this guy was going to be a difference maker. But it does happen. It does happen that guys are taken that don't have the best production and turn out. And there is a ceiling there. And maybe they think that if they were to do that, hey, just because of his pure size alone, that there is a floor that's going to be okay. But I still think that's really risky because of the injury issues. Hunter says, still a little baffling that they didn't find a way to draft a running back last year. Missed opportunity. Every mock that I did, every sim that I did, I was always taking running backs. And Bashal Tutin, I think, would have been great. He's exactly what we're talking about now. What was he, a 5th round pick, 4th round, 6th round? This is also what happens. I've said it so many times, but it's also very true. This is what happens when you trade your 6th rounders for Cam Akers every year. If you're always trading those draft picks, you can't throw a random pick at a running back if you have someone else graded much higher. The Kobe King thing is weird because when they took him, I remember hearing from a couple of people, Chris Trapasso was one of them, someone with another team that I know who's like, that guy's really good. We liked him a lot and, we were going to pick him or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's great. Great pick then, I guess. And then he's just gone halfway through the year. Okay. And that's been another part of it too. If you draft those players and have no plans to really stick with them through the ups and downs or develop them, then this is what happens. But not taking a running back is pretty egregious. I agree. In a draft that was thought of as has tons of running backs, and then this one has nothing to work with, it was not really a lot of foresight. And I think that that's the main other takeaway from the Kwesi era was not a lot of foresight. It was what's kind of right in front of us right now, and that's what we'll draft. Doomer KO was the biggest non-believer in Kyle Hamilton, thought he was going to be too slow and monster overrated because he played at Notre Dame. Jordan Davis was my dude. Jordan Davis, it took a couple years for him to get to be a good player. He's finally gotten there and is making huge money. Kyle Hamilton, I was on the opposite side of that spectrum. I wanted the Vikings to take Jameson Williams with the 12th pick. I know everyone, please don't drop your phone on your face in shock that I wanted them to take the wide receiver with that pick, but that was, hey, look, I'm not that worried that he's not going to play right away. Develop him coming off the ACL. He's got lightning. He's crazy athletic. Like, it'll be great next to Justin Jefferson. That one took a few years to come to fruition, and they wouldn't have gotten Addison if they had taken him, and he had his off-field stuff as well. But that's who I wanted them to take with that pick. If you look who came next, if they had traded down just a little bit instead of a lot, you still have some picks that didn't work out in there, and it's always going to happen. It was really more about the logic, because I know Hamilton is the one that everybody focuses on. They might not have taken him. They might have taken a guard, or so they might, was it Zion Johnson? Like, they might have taken a guard there instead of, I don't know who they were going to take, but it was more about the historic sacrifice that you make by moving down 20 spots. If you look, just go to drafthistory.com, just call up on drafthistory.com. You can call up why don't we just do this? Why do I tell you guys to do stuff that I could just be doing on the show? Drafthistory.com. Let's see. Let's take a look. Because I remember doing this when they made the move. You can look at the pick in the round. So let's go to 12th. And this is not the best way to do this ever, but let's just take a look at 10, 11, like the 12th overall pick, 10, 11, 12. Like, there's a lot of stars there. The 12th overall pick, we're just going to go straight back as far as we want to go and read the names and see who was drafted 12th, because this was my logic for why they should not trade out of 12. And I'm sorry if that's kind of small on your screen, but maybe I can make it a little bigger. Can I make it a little bigger? Nope, that ruined everything. So I can't make it a little bigger. All right, I'll just read them. Tyler Booker, last year, instant impact player. Bo Nix, Jahmyr Gibbs, star. Jameson Williams, semi-star. Micah Parsons, megastar. Henry Ruggs would have been good. Rashawn Gary was a good pick for the Packers. Vita Vea, star. Deshaun Watson, but, he was a franchise quarterback at one time. Sheldon Rankins, really good player. Danny Shelton was a bust. Odell Beckham, megastar. DJ Hayden didn't really work out. Fletcher Cox, superstar. I will not say the 12th overall pick in 2011. Ryan Matthews, a running back was probably a very bad pick at the time. No, Sean Moreno didn't work out. Ryan Clady, I think he did. Marshawn Lynch, of course, did. Haloti Nada star, Sean Merriman star, Jonathan Vilma star. And then we go back even farther, and we've got Keith Brooking, Warwick Dunn, Sean Ellis. There's Warren Sapp. There's a lot of really, really good players. Ken Harvey, superstar. Trace Armstrong. Yeah, there's Aaron Glenn. Tons of great players who are drafted with the 12th overall pick. There's lots of stars there, lots of Pro Bowlers. Now, if we go to number 32, I think we're going to find a lot less, other than, yes, Lamar Jackson. Ryan Ramczyk was a good pick. Teddy Bridgewater might have worked out eventually, but there's Xavier Legette, bust. Lewis Cine, bust. Joe Tyrion is a bust. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, bust. N'Keal Harry, bust. Those two are great. Malcolm Brown, I don't remember him. Matt Elam, bust. David Wilson, don't really remember him. Running back, I think he was a role player. Derek Sherrod, I don't really remember. Patrick Robinson, sort of just a guy. Ziggy Hood wasn't that great. Anthony Gonzalez. You get my point. There's a handful here as we scroll through that became starters. DK Metcalf, obviously. No, wait, he was the second rounder. Okay. I don't know how this is sorted, but this one is sorted kind of weird. But anyway, I guess it only goes back to, well, that's weird. Anyway, well, those are a lot of them through 2005, I guess, 2004. And a lot that just did not work out really at all at 32. So that was kind of my main argument. And I know that picking one spot and saying, see, they didn't work out. But I even did it a little bit different where I took picks like 25 through 35. And I compared them to picks 10 through, or maybe 8 through 15, whatever, like a section of picks. And it was just Pro Bowler and Hall of Famer after Pro Bowl and Hall of Famer in the top area of the draft. And the back end of the first was some guys that were great, but a lot of meh, a lot of just okay. Anyway, so that was a long way around that conversation. Doomer KL wanted us to draft anyone besides McCarthy, specifically Penix. I wonder how Penix might have worked out here for sure. The McCarthy conversation with me specifically is a little bit dicey because he was the one I was most concerned about for the historic and number related reasons. He didn't have the big stats. He didn't have a lot of starts. Those have been red flags in the past. I remember talking to a former scout leading up to that draft who told me that there was kind of a long thing in football about the number of starts. And I was like, was that BS? Or it's like, well, go look at it. There's not that many guys. There's Cam Newton. There's Kyler Murray who worked out without a lot of starts, but there's not that many who weren't like the number one overall pick that were really great without, I thought, well, maybe it was like 50 starts or whatever. That was concerning. He was the late riser, the sort of, he's supposed to be a second round pick. And then all of a sudden college football is not played anymore. And he is getting pushed up a board. And there were a lot of concerns there that I had about McCarthy, but some people took that for, well, you hate him. It's like, well, it's the same thing with Dylan Thieneman, where I'm expressing the research on this as, or presenting the research on this as a reason why you might want to think twice about it, or a risk factor. Same with Caleb Banks. The guy could certainly become a megastar, but you have to look at all the information. So I felt that way about McCarthy, and every single thing that was a concern basically has happened. Like, it's not enough experience. How is he going to handle ups and downs when he never had downs at any point in his high school or college career? How is he going to adapt to NFL speed and physicality when he didn't play that much in college? You have to factor that they wanted to run the ball more than put it in his hands. So there was all those things. But when he got to the Vikings, by the middle of training camp, I thought, well, I'm wrong. He looks great. And then the meniscus thing seemed to reset everything, and it never materialized, and there was more injuries. And then it kind of falls into that category of a lot of bad luck too. So I've never wanted to be like, I told you so. Like, I don't know, because I do this with all of them. Like with Penix, I liked Penix's fit, but also look at those knees, man. That's a huge worry. And then here we are. he's going to miss the start of the season because of another knee injury. He's not going to be able to walk. He's going to look like Bernie Kosar out there by the time the guy turns 26. So every prospect comes along with a set of, hey, this has worked out historically. This has not worked out historically. And McCarthy kind of fell under that category. If he doesn't have the production, so I'm always going to be, very nervous about that. Hunter, Aaron Donald was a player I fell in love with pre-draft and wanted the Vikings to draft desperately. Maybe they would have if we didn't have Sharif Floyd at the time. I think that they would have. Yeah, I think they would have. Yep. I believe that they would have drafted him had they not had Sharif Floyd. But you remember how good of an impression Sharif Floyd made. And it's not like they picked a guy who turned out to be bad. Anthony Barr had a very good Vikings career, but if they had Aaron Donald, yeah, it would have been insane. I could see why, though. They were very high on what they were seeing from Sharif Floyd. That's another one that's really bad luck. Sharif Floyd is probably a top 20 defensive tackle in the league for a long time if he doesn't have the botched surgery. DLM willing to concede that Pons might be an outside guy and the draft guys might be putting him in a box. I think they are. I tend to focus so much more on just how does this guy actually play football more than what his height is or more than any measurable, although his measurables are insane and they matter, but they're insane for this guy. But watch him play. A dominant player, best player on the field a lot of times for a team that won a national championship. That's why I like him so much. And if he drops because he's a little shorter, that's great. Fantastic. Eric says Jermod McCoy, AJ Halsey, Mike Washington Jr., Logan Jones, Caleb Proctor would be my dream scenario for 5 picks for the Vikings. Proctor is Southern Louisiana player who's got some interesting low-key metrics. And I like Halsey a lot. Halsey's a playmaker. And there's maybe a little risk-taking on his side, but the guy gets picks. The guy makes plays. If you're telling me 49th overall pick Halsey and I get a corner in the first or Thieneman in a corner in the second, I would rather have the first round corner. I'd rather have McCoy and get the playmaking safety in the second round. Washington Jr. is a fair pick. I have some reservations about him, but he has all the physical skills of somebody who could be a dangerous role-playing running back. I like Logan Jones a ton. I really do. He is undersized, so there's some Garrett Bradbury discussion there to be had, but quickness, he gets on people, he's physical, he looks to me like he could run their system, the outside zone, really, really well. I like him a lot. I shot you 99. Thank you so much for the super chat. What needy position would the Vikings need to bite the nail on this draft just because they need to fill multiple spots on the roster? I mean, I think that there's several. We've been talking a lot about defensive tackle tonight and Caleb Banks. That's probably the one where you look at the roster and it's the most dire. I don't see safety that way like I think outside analysts do, because I don't think people realize that they've developed Jay Ward to be ready for this, or that they gave Theo Jackson a contract extension because they liked him so much. This is not me saying they won't draft a safety, by the way. They could. But I look at defensive tackle and go, okay, Ingram Dawkins showed some flashes. Levi Drake Rodriguez, I like his trajectory, but Jalen Redmond is kind of on an island here. And even Elijah Williams, like, okay, like there's something there with all those guys. But it's really, in terms of proven defensive tackles, it's Jalen Redmond and maybe that's not really what you're looking for. So if you had to lean into, gotta fill a need right now, this man has to come in and play and he's got to start, Peter Woods, defensive tackle, makes the most sense for me, because I think he could start right away with his size and strength and his ability to move people, his explosiveness. And I think he can develop, but they've just got very little there. Now, DJ Reader's still out there. There will be decisions made. I think, of course, they're going to trade for Dexter Lawrence, right? There will be decisions made based on what happens in the draft, probably, of who they go after June 1st. And Reader might be on that list. But as of right now, that's the one that's the most, hey, you should really go out and get that guy because you need him. Oak Dog says, liked your mock last night. Thank you. Looked like what would be the best for the Vikings to do if the two safeties are gone by 18. this could happen. I don't even remember, who did I take last night? I don't even remember who I took last night. And this is a little bit of the problem with, mocking so many times. Oh, I traded down, right? I think I traded down. I think I traded down and did I trade down and take Peter Woods? I think that's what I did last night. I traded down and took Peter Woods because I was like, I don't remember what I did. I ran 5 draft sims today. So, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. The trade down does make a lot of sense no matter what way you do it. Who's the Angel Reese of this year's draft? Well, the thing about Angel Reese is that, and I want to be clear, I think she's a very good player and has one unique tool, but her other skills are so lacking behind that you can't put her in the category of the elite players in the league. And yet it gets treated like that. So, I think, that's a little bit of a misunderstanding, maybe because of her celebrity and because there's so much attention that is put on her one skill, but her one skill is a little bit antiquated. Being the best rebounder in football, what would this be? Like being the best blocking tight end is kind of what that would be like. I don't know who who is a celebrity in the NFL, but the thing about the difference between the W and the NFL is that the W will draft the celebrities because they want ticket sales. So they'll draft Haley Van Lith in the first round when she has no reason of going in the first round other than she's got a lot of followers and a lot of fans. I'm not saying that's true for Reese, but I think that her actual performance is inflated because of the attention that's on her and everything else. So you get 2 first-round picks for her, you got to feel pretty good. And I'm not sure I agree with you, DLM, that first-round picks in the W are like 6th and 7th in the NFL. I don't agree with that. I mean, you draft franchise players with first round picks in the W. I know it's mostly at the top, but you don't know where those are going to end up. They trade her to Atlanta. They might be bad. I don't know that they're a great team. They were good last year, but somebody gets hurt and all of a sudden that's kind of what's happened here. Chicago thought they were going to be good and they weren't. And now the Lynx are drafting number 2. So, there's a lottery and that changes the math as well. But anyway, it would be like, well, maybe it's like Caden McDonald. That would be my answer. It's Caden McDonald because Caden McDonald could be a really good player. And I think Reese is too, but the overall impact of what they do well is just kind of proven out to not carry the same weight as other stuff. It carries weight that he could stop the run, but it doesn't carry as much weight as it does when a defensive tackle gets 40 pressures, for example. Your draft DLM, your draft prediction for this year is Jamari Taylor will be a solid running back. I have not looked deep into Jamari Taylor. I guess I will have to do that. Jack, if Jake Slaughter is there at 49, I'd like the Vikings to have that guy. Is 49 a little high for a center? I was thinking more day 3. I was thinking center and wide receiver for day 3. Maybe I'll do a draft sim some night of we'll look at all their visits and we'll only try to draft guys from their visits or something. We got 2 weeks to go, my friends. 2 weeks to go. You're right about that there are a lot of center needy teams. So maybe you're right. Rome, keep Grenard, find a way to extend and bridge the gap, 25 to 28 million. I think it would be wise to have Grenard long-term. Definitely think it would be wise to have him longer term. There is a little concern injury-wise. The price starts to go up. But if you can't draft an edge rusher this year that you're really happy with, I think the Grenard thing should be kicked down the road a little bit. Now, he might be unhappy and you might get one of those training camp standoffs or whatever, but he's got 2 years left on his contract. He should be able to play out this year and then negotiate a new contract next year, see where everybody's at. I think if you're the Vikings, you want to do this next year. You don't want to do this right now. See where everybody is at after this year. If he gets 10 sacks, he's looking great. He's healthy. They're good. They need him. Okay, re-sign him and give him a lot of money. But if he gets 5 sacks and plays 12 games next year and you've given him this huge contract extension, you're not going to feel great about that. I'd like to see where it's headed first. And thank you. Thank you, Jack. Glad that you are enjoying the show. Appreciate that. Daniel, Harrison Smith is the unicorn. Totally right. Harrison Smith is somebody we shouldn't even discuss when trying to project anyone else. we should just not look that high because it's really hard to reach that marker. That is an all-time great player. So if you look at Dylan Thieneman, and I don't even think really Thieneman reminds me a lot of Harrison Smith. I think Smith is, and I'll have to look at his exact size and specs, but I look at Harry as more of like powerful, but having range with crazy length. And it's the IQ that makes the difference, that he's one of the most instinctual football players of the last 20 years in the NFL. That's a hard ask for anybody else. So you could say, hey, if you could give me Harrison Smith in his prime with the 18th overall pick, I'd be like, oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. I would take that with a top 5 pick. But the odds that someone becomes that are not that high. The odds that they become a pretty solid, decent Xavier McKinney, good player, and McKinney's really good, but just good, are much more likely. That's kind of the point on someone like Dylan Thieneman, is that if he becomes the comp from, the Athletic, which is Justin Reed, well, that's something you can get in free agency. Like, is it going to be closer to Cam Bynum or Harrison Smith? If it's closer to Cam Bynum, you could find that. If it's closer to Harrison Smith and they really believe in that, then by all means do it. But that's just a high bar to set. That's like saying anyone drafted 18th overall is not really a comp for a future Hall of Famer. Dan, you think the Seahawks will pick Jadarian Price in the first round? I think that it's very possible, yeah, because they've just left their running back room, and that's a team that clearly, after winning the Super Bowl, is going to want to maintain a similar system, I would suspect. I know they lost their offensive coordinator, but won't they want to keep a similar system where they're run first, play action to Smith-Njigba kind of stuff? I would think so. And who else are you going to pick other than Jadarian Price? There are some people who don't have him as their second running back, but it feels like it's a consensus almost that he is RB2 in this class. Feels very Seahawksy to maybe make the same mistake as Clyde Edwards-Helaire with the Chiefs of, well, we need this position right now, so we got to go get it in the draft. But I don't know who else is. I mean, Charbonnet tore his ACL. He can come back, but is he going to be ready for week 1 even? Who's their running back? That's a tough spot to be in. Forrest, we also desperately need young, fast impact linebackers. Everyone is under contract and old, and we let Kobe King and was it Austin Keys was the guy? Was that what his name was? Was that someone else? It was Keys, right? The undrafted free agent that they let go. Linebacker is on my radar. This is why you trade down, because Jacob Rodriguez is very much on my radar. I'm wondering if he actually goes in the first round. Anthony Hill Jr., I am just not as sold on Anthony Hill Jr. being a top guy. And I was reading, I know Brugler is going to dominate this show for mentions over the next couple weeks, but there's differing opinions on him. There are some draft analysts who think, look at this guy. He's got, sack production. He would be great for Flores. He's rangy. He's got great athletic skills. His athletics profile is through the roof. And I think that Flores could make that work. But then there is the issue of he didn't play that great at Texas this year for all the athletic skills that he has. And what has been written about him is that maybe the instincts aren't there to go along with the physical traits. I like Rodriguez a lot more for the Vikings than someone like Anthony Hill Jr., because I think he's got all of the IQ, all of the instincts, plus the athleticism to go along with it. If he was 49, that would be good with me. Linebacker might be a position that you look at a little later and try to swing on, like a 5th round pick, try to take a swing on that and see what happens. And then, all right, if it doesn't work out, you're really looking more desperately next year. It's on the radar, though. It should be. I don't disagree with you. Eric, do I think that Bryce Lance is a Christian Watson clone? It's a very easy comparison because, they came from the same university. But I actually do think he is. I agree with that. Forrest says that he's 100% a Watson clone. His athleticism is through the roof. He was a deep wide receiver. I think he can go up and get it. I think he's as fast as anybody in the draft. He's got great size. So if they were looking at him at 49, I would say that's a yes. And whatever it is about NDSU, Like a lot of the players that they produce have been pretty darn good in the NFL. So I am interested in Bryce Lance in the second round, or maybe the third, depending on where he ends up going. Son of Beavers, I feel like we are going to trade down into the second round and grab an extra fourth. I wouldn't mind them seeing them do that. I don't know if I want to trade them. Well, you mean in the second round. I'm a little bit sus on that. I don't mind it, but I'm a little on it because this is another one of those looking at how drafts kind of play out. Early second round has tons of really good players into the mid second round. Back end is where it starts to peter out in even good drafts. And if you go too far back, then you're talking about the level of prospect in a poor draft is going to be a little bit low. They do need more bodies. They do need more prospects. Matt, do you think that mocking who the Vikings will take this year is so difficult because there's so many options, or because nobody knows Brzezinski's draft strategy? I think the answer is yes. Yes to both. So many options is part of it, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree that the draft strategy, we don't really know. He has given us a couple of hints about his draft strategy, and he has said the words 2027 a time or two. He has mentioned, best player on your board and don't stack your board because of needs and things like that, which may be a little bit of a hint that they might take a position that we don't necessarily expect. That's why I've thrown tackle into the mix. But we just have no idea. Like, Rob's been watching drafts and helping on drafts for 20 years, but he's never been the one calling the shots. I think it's, you still know that KOC and Brian Flores are going to be the ones leading the way. They've got to sign off on the decision. So it's probably more about actual roster and going forward, because every time I look at it for 2027, I'm like, I can't believe how many people they're going to have available into the future. Let me take a quick pause to remind you once again about ZipRecruiter. Purple Insider runs pretty smoothly in part because of great, passionate people who work with me here on the show, not just myself running it, although that's what it looks like sometimes. If you are hiring for your business and you are looking for passionate people like I have working with me, then you're going to want to use ZipRecruiter, because you can't just get that from a resume unless you use ZipRecruiter. You can try it now for free at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. And there's a lot of things they can do for you to help you find the best candidates, including having candidates tell you in their own words why they're interested in the job. And ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology helps you find quality candidates quickly. Add that all together and you get a new feature that shows you the most interested and most qualified candidates first, so you meet the right people fastest. Find candidates who really want your job on ZipRecruiter. 4 out of every 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try it for free. ZipRecruiter.com/audio. Meet your match on ZipRecruiter. So there you go. Back to you guys. Doomer, KO. Always draft the weed guy is hilarious. Also completely in on the honey badger. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Great memory, Dan, that Dan Marino may have fallen in part. And if you watch his football life, I mean, again, it's treated like the guy, I don't even want to say crimes, but crimes. It's treated like very terrible crimes back in the day. And now we're just like, they don't even test. Who cares? It has kind of nothing to do with it. And if somebody smokes themselves out of the league, then, well, they will know that though. If someone has a problem, they will know. If someone has a serious drug issue, they have investigations going on these draft prospects. They have people following them. They have people tracking their social medias. It is a really detailed process in the background part of it. So if there's somebody that has a serious issue, then the NFL, somebody might fall in the draft that's expected to go high. And you're like, really? Why? And, oh, well, nobody knows. There might be something behind the scenes that they don't know about. Norris Force, if Ty Simpson falls to 18, do you stick with the best player theory and draft him? He is, in my view, he is not the best player at 18. I don't think he's a first-round quarterback. 6 foot tall. He's barely played any football. He had half a good season. I do not see it. I see that as a second round type of player. He's got traits that you like, but it's a developmental guy. If he was there for the Vikings in the third, I might think about it, but even then I probably wouldn't. I just don't view him as someone who has the capability to be a franchise quarterback. This could go under worst Purple Insider take someday, but that's how I view it. I just don't view him as being a top player. That was the FanDuel question of the day, by the way, was that Ty Simpson is plus 130 to go to the Arizona Cardinals, who draft third. It's kind of wild. My take is that he's not going to even be a first round draft pick. Maybe that'll turn out to be terrible. So I'm curious about your best takes. That's the FanDuel question of the day. Your best takes ever going into the draft. Not sure how to say your name exactly, but you got Mike at the end, so we're going to go with Mike. Vikings should take Vega and cut Fries. They can't really cut him. They can't really cut him right now, but they could next year. If they drafted a guard, it would be a huge indictment on Will Fries. I think you got to play that out first and then maybe think about that next year. That's when I would like your logic's not insane. I mean, if he's the best player there and you're not sold on Will Fries, then figure it out, develop him for a year, get rid of Fries, move him in. I'm okay with 2027 picks if it's the best player. That's one I have a hard time seeing, though. John Tootin was picked at 104, so would have had to take him instead of Ty Felton. Okay, right, yeah. I mean, in my draft sim, yes, he was taken like way later than that. But I think we were talking about just in general running backs in that draft, that they were pretty deep through the rest of the draft, and they were taking linebackers and tight ends, and they weren't taking shots on running backs. But you're right about Tootin. That might have also looked okay right now, but it also kind of tells you about just a little bit about like third round and the type of players that you're getting. That's a good place to take a running back. John says, I'm infuriated with the idea of getting Dexter Lawrence, even though, I'm sorry, not infuriated, John, infatuated. Those are two very different things. Wow. It's been 2 hours. Usually I start botching comments and it gets weird after 2 hours. Anyway, let me try again. John, I'm infatuated with the idea of getting Dexter Lawrence, even though the cap space doesn't make sense. I just feel like it would make the defense elite. I know you expanded on this, but why not? I mean, the why not is really the price. Not only do you have to give the New York Giants at best a second round pick, they might be holding out for a first, which you're not going to do, but you got to give them 49, and then you got to give Dexter Lawrence a lot more money. That's just a big ask. It hurts your salary cap right away. It's very difficult to even trade for him with his current cap hit. So you'd have to do some stuff right now to make a change with your salary cap. You'd have to restructure, you'd have to extend, you have to make that cap space to trade for him, then give him a new contract, which is going to be top of the market, $33 million per year. And he's 29 and he's coming off a year where, there was down a little bit. I think he's an elite player. I think he's as good as it gets at defensive tackle in the NFL. And if they did it, they would have the potential to be a top 5 defense in the NFL. And he's, a final piece to that. It would be an all-in for 2026 that they've talked about not doing, is basically what it would be. He would be a foundational piece for the future, though. And you could make that argument that they don't have too many of those. So if they do it, I like the player so much that I would go, okay, yeah. I mean, why not? You got Kyler Murray here, just chips to the middle of the table. This roster's coming apart after this, so heck with it. Go for it. But from a practical Rob Brzezinski perspective, that would be a heck of a move. If he's not going to be the GM of the future, that would be a heck of a move to make for your future GM of, oh, by the way, we traded away a second round draft pick and added $33 million per year to this player. That's just a lot. It's a lot to be done there. JP, Matt convinced me on taking a wide receiver day 1, especially if it's Cooper Jr., Lemon, or Tyson. We can find safeties on day 2 or 3. Wide receiver value goes through the roof and gives us leverage with the Addison situation. It also makes your quarterback better. If the guy is even good, it gives you a much better chance to win with Kyler Murray right away, because wide receivers often do come in and contribute immediately. That's a position that does take some curve, but not crazy. I know not everyone's Justin Jefferson, but there's a ton of wide receivers who come in and get 50, 60 catches as rookies and make a contribution. I'm sure that one of those first round wide receivers in a wide receiver 3 spot can do something like that. And if it's 45 catches, that's huge for your quarterback versus who do you have there now? It's a 3rd round project and then question marks at this moment. And even if you get DeAndre Hopkins, you're talking about someone who's 100 years old and caught 30 passes last year or something, 20 passes. There's a big difference between that and top prospects in the draft. John says lives in Arizona, and Tyson would be incredible as a number 3. Biz Woofer wants Elijah Surratt. I like him too. Biz Woofer is in on Malachi Fields. I guess I got to watch more of Fields. Bryce Lance. I don't know Josh Cameron, along with Dazon Stribling. So you're liking the bigger guys, it seems. That's kind of where you're looking, is for the bigger guys. Oh yeah. Josh Gordon I think Josh Gordon might have been some other things, that it was not just the weed. The magical scientist. Why is Jacob Rodriguez not a 1st round prospect? If athletic ability was his flaw, he showed out at the combine. I think he is. I think that there's underrating of him going on in the mock draft universe because he's a linebacker, but I think this is a year where you do that. I think he will be taken in the 1st. That would be another hot take. Him and Chris Johnson from San Diego State, I think both have a chance. Whew. That's some good football talk, my friends. There's ZipRecruiter. That's some very good football talk, my friends. So here's what's going on the show. Tomorrow, we'll have a conversation with Max Chadwick, who is from the Preferred Walk-On podcast, and we're going to talk about the safest and most risky players that the Vikings could go after. There's going to be some Peter Woods and Caleb Banks talk then as well. And then on to next week, and we start really counting down toward the draft. We'll see if any news comes up. Maybe we'll do a mock draft of only players that have visited the Vikings, and we'll grab some fun guests for you guys, and we'll have some more draft talk. I love how dialed in you guys are, that every one of these conversations is kind of taking its own little shape, and I've enjoyed all of them. So we'll sign off for now. If anything comes up, if there's any news, then, emergency podcasts are still possible, but probably plan on Monday night as being the live show again next time. So hopefully see you there. And check out my article at purpleinsider.football. I talked to 3 reporters who covered Kyler Murray in high school about Kyler Mania in Texas, and it was really fun. So make sure you go check that out. And we will talk to you all again very soon. Football.